folks, as you can see, I've gotten into a big 42-inch oak tree on my sawmill. This is the biggest one I've ever cut, and I'd like to say, if you ever have an opportunity to cut a big tree like this, I highly recommend you don't do it, because it's a gut-wrenching thing, making sure everything's clear, and you have to watch exactly what's going on the other side of the sawmill. You can see I got off and ran around there because I just wanted to make sure. And several times I had to take chainsaw and nip little branches that had grown over off just so I could clear the saw head past them. Now this log wound up about 46 inches in places. I couldn't really tell when I was first sizing it up. Some of the limbs 3 or 4 feet apart, and it's hard to get an accurate dimension on it. And later on in this video you'll see what happens to my takeoff conveyor at the other end there. It wound up breaking some bolts. You see how nice and level it is across the lead edge of it. Like I say, some of the big flitches that I was taking off this log sheared a bolt off on this left side of the takeoff conveyor, so I had to stop with all that. I barely got the big flitch that did the worst of the damage. I barely got it out of the building, but I managed to wrestle it up on there and get it on out the door. Now I knew going in on this log that I'd have some punk wood around the outside, a little bit on the ends, and I kind of took that into consideration. You'll see how this one kind of explodes when it hits. But I wound up getting about 30 4x4s out of this. I had to throw, I think it was 8 of them out. They just didn't make the grade, but I was able to cut them up into fence posts, which I needed about 24 fence posts. Customer only needed 10 4x4s. Between this log and another 14-inch log, I got everything I needed and a couple of extra table legs. I'll taper them. I've got a couple of craftsmen that'll use them to make tables, and I'll make some benches too out of them. This really turned out to be some good wood through the center of the tree, but just getting to it was the hard part. You can see I'm rolling that big knot up on top there, and this is just another good use of the laser. Looking at situations like this, you don't know exactly how much clearance you're going to have going through the throat of the sawmill. You can see I clicked the laser on and got it set about where I think I want to cut through, but then I'll come around with a tape measure and measure from that laser line up on that knot, just to make sure I've got enough clearance to get through the throat. I've got 12 inches of clearance, and I think I wound up where I'm at with the saw head there at about 12 and a half, so I have to raise the saw head up a little bit. You'll see me do that before I proceed on through it. I used the laser to determine where I wanted to cut this flitch off, but I had to raise it up probably about another 3/4 of an inch just to get that knot off the log, so that I could come back and then reset to that point to cut that flitch off. So I've got it positioned where I think it's best to cut this. Now I will say I'm going through this log probably at about 34% on the engine percentage meter there. I really use it a lot. Now you can see I don't have very much clearance between the top of that knot and the drawback arm on my mill, so I'm having to really be careful with it, keeping a check on everything, making sure things aren't in the way. I determined I'm gonna have to probably get the chainsaw and take a little small knot off the side here. It had clearance, but not quite enough. I don't want to tear anything up, so just to be on the safe side. There's one that came off. See how I am. I got to keep my place kind of clean. I'm gonna go and get the chainsaw and take this other little knot off just to make sure I've got enough clearance. So I got that taken care of. I think I'm going to be okay with the rest of this cut. But sometimes you just can't see exactly how close it is on the video. I wish I had a camera up closer to the saw head. So I came back around to check it just to make sure on this side one last time. I wanted to take the time to thank all my viewers and subscribers. I enjoy all the questions and comments that I get from the videos that I've done. It just makes me feel like it's worth the effort in putting these videos together. People get something out of it. I know I need to do better with my cameras and lighting, things along those lines. I've been in touch with Nathan over at Out of the Woods, got his recommendations on camera setup. He does a good job with his videos, so I'm going to look into getting some better cameras. Talking about viewers, I've got Dave over at the Old Man and the Saw. He asked some really good questions. The man's very observant in watching things that I've done on the video, but he asked about possibly taking my finished bundles, raising them up on the roller toe boards and just draw them back onto the takeoff conveyor. And I have done that in the past, but what I found out was that I had to speed that takeoff conveyor up so fast to take away the flitches that I lost a lot of torque. So I found it just as easy to just go on and take the finished bundles and turn them out at the end of the sawmill and take them away with the skid steer. And you can see I'm using old Precious here. Pull that big flitch off the top of that log there. You'll hear me say Precious from time to time. That's what my wife's named my skid steer. Everybody had a Precious in their life at one time or another. She's big and strong. She'll work all day for you. Just give her a little TLC every now and then. But I tell you, this stump grapple on the machine has really been a big help in handling things like this, logs, because you can pick them up from the end, pick them up from the side. It's just incredible. And I also pick up stacks of finished lumber with it. I think in one of the previous videos I'd shown the little flat attachment that I put over the prongs up front so it didn't cut into finished wood. I had that issue at one time, but making that other little attachment for it really helped in that regard. It doesn't leave any imprints or tear the finished lumber. Just getting this log to a workable cant has really been a gut-wrenching episode on the sawmill. It's one of those things that you got to take your time with. Make sure you're not hurting something, getting a little out of hand with it. But you can see now I'm getting it where it's more of a manageable log. I have to say the hydraulics on the Woodmizer are exceptional. Log lift, pick this thing up, set it up on the mill. You can see how the turner works fine with it, rotating the log. You can see here I'm using the laser again to get a gauge where I need to pass through the log. I think I've got it set up now for where I want the flitch to be. And I'm going to measure again just to make sure that I've got enough room to clear the drawback arm in the throat of the mill. Yeah, I'm easing up right there. Checking it with a tape measure. And like I said earlier, it's really handy to be able to do that. I'll just put that tape measure on the laser line, measure up to see what I've got, and that way there's no guessing. It's hard to gauge, as a lot of you already know, looking down the sawmill, exactly where things are going to wind up. You can see I had to come up a little bit more just to have that clearance. So I'm satisfied with that. Time to make a cut on it. So I'll just take this point off, get rid of it, and come back and drop down to take the flitch off. I've got that little knob cut and out of the way, so I'll come back and reset for the flitch. I'm looking at things, being careful. You can see I come around the side, check that blade guide arm, because I definitely don't want to hit it on the log going down. So I'm satisfied with what I've got there, so I'll make a cut, get the flitch off the top of this one so I can rotate it. As you can see, I really take it slow and going through the log when I'm making a big cut on it. Having that percentage meter on the mill is really a big help. Woodmizer did a really good job by incorporating that into the machine. I just can't say enough about the design and the quality and craftsmanship in putting this mill together. I'm very satisfied with it. You know, these little modifications that I do are just things that I consider to be helpful for what I do. Every situation is different. Everybody's needs are different. But these little modifications, all of them together, really help out, make things easier for me, and improve the machine in a little way. Coming up with this flitch, you're going to see the first little bit of damage that happened to the takeoff conveyor. You can see where the flitch hit there on the corner, knocked it down a little bit. Well, I wasn't aware of that at the time, but these are some very heavy flitches. You can see how it reared up there. One of the next ones is even worse than that. But I didn't know about the damage until a little bit later on, as you'll see coming up. There was a lot of rotten wood around the outside of this log, and I knew that going in. But I still wound up with I think it was 21.5 by 24 3/4 inch cant. So that's pretty good size cant for this oak tree. I wound up losing about 8 of the 4x4s off of it due to bad edges and checking. It was just not acceptable. But I had another 14-inch tree that I brought up after this and got the rest of the 4x4s that I needed. You'll be able to tell this next flitch coming off the log, it's huge. This thing probably weighed 800 to 1,000 pounds itself. Had I known I was going to have these issues hitting the takeoff conveyor, hindsight now, but I would have brought the log, the cant, moved it on towards the takeoff conveyor more so it wouldn't be such a severe angle coming down and hitting that lead edge of the takeoff conveyor, because that's what did the damage. You'll see coming up here where it sheared a bolt on this left side of the takeoff conveyor, and that caused that lead edge to angle down severely. You can can see I'm having to wrestle with this thing just to get it up on the conveyor. Watch this thing rear up because it's heavy. I managed to get it up there, but the damage was already done to the takeoff conveyor, so the belt was binding, and you can see that lead edge, how it's down. But I managed to get the belt to push on off and get that flitch off of it, and I came back and just shut everything down, lifted that lead edge up, and put some grade 8 bolts in it. Well, I hope I didn't bore you with this video. I just wanted to share it with you. And I also wanted to introduce to you Bella. She's going to be the queen of the sawmill. Brutus is all beside himself. He's got somebody to play with now. He's getting where he was bored and tearing things up, so we got him a running mate. These Kangal breeds are really nice dogs. My wife picked them out. I'm really glad she did. They're the lovingest things. Brutus thinks the world of her. He's got to show her the ropes around the sawmill, though. He'll get her going on it. You got to teach her about the sawdust. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. Take care and be safe.